everyone, Trienne here. Thanks for joining us back on the social channels in all the places, all the things. I have a guest with me today named Janell. I can't wait for her to share her story with you. Already, we've been talking a little bit before we even hit record, and I was like, this is my girl. So this is going to be a great interview that you're not going to want to miss. And without further waiting, we're going to bring Janell from backstage here. Hello, hello.
Hello, happy to be here.
I'm so glad. Yeah. So it's always interesting when I start these interviews because it's like, okay, am I talking to a podcast audience? Am I talking to a YouTube contacts? What am I talking? It's going to go all the places and all the things. So you look beautiful on video. Audio is great. And I can't wait for our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So why don't you just kind of share what it is that you're doing now, what you're passionate about, what you do, and kind of we'll get into the rest of the interview after that.
Oh, yeah, of course. So currently, I've had the opportunity to join a startup company that is a single family home residential. And right now, I'm running everything that has to do with the leasing team. So from applications and marketing to application processing, fraud prevention, things like that. But what I truly love about what I do isn't necessarily the day to day, but the fact that I had the ability to create the processes, the email, rules to filter into this particular folder and whatever. So that's kind of what I learned, that I developed a niche that I can create something out of nothing. And that's been really fun to learn. So that's a highlight of the job I have right now.
Yeah, and a lot of this kind of hospitality and leasing comes from some of your past experience with another company. Do you want to kind of share that past experience that got to you where you're at now?
Oh, yeah, of course. So in the property management world, people are notoriously grumpy, crusty, if you will. They're not known for being kind and friendly and these types of things. So I actually come from a hospitality background. I have a tourism degree. I worked with Marriott for about 6 years, and I was able to rise up through the ranks and become more of a front end manager. I left as a director of front office, and when I made the transition to real estate, I realized that my edge was bringing that hospitality to the forefront in a market and in an area which is just so well known for people not being kind and not being friendly. And it's been amazing to watch that translate into immediate success with the single family company that I work for, because I consistently receive comments from prospects and things like that being, oh, you're so kind, like you're so nice, you're so friendly and helpful. So I really think that that background in hospitality has helped to propel my career in an area where that's not as common.
Yeah, and I think when we think about hospitality, because obviously I'm also in the restaurant business in a sense, and I remember growing up through that, my leader would always say, it's just food and people, Trienne. It's just food and people. So kind of same thing for you. Like it's just housing and people. If everyone is just kind to each other, we can get some of these things solved. We can move on in the best interest of everybody involved. But that kindness, I think people sometimes feel like aggressiveness is going to get them what they want, when really it's the kindness that's going to get us where we want to go.
Of
Yeah.
course, you can always attract more flies with honey, right? And
Yes.
that's the adage. Like, it's totally true. And I just have found that so many people, especially in nowadays rental world, where you can do so many things digitally and with virtual assistants and chatbots and AI, it's fascinating to see that the edge my company has is actually the fact that a stateside person with excellent verbal communication skills is answering their phone. It's amazing. It's just the most odd thing that I never would have expected here in 2024. But since we do have so much AI and automation and bot, the human experience is actually starting to become more rare and more valued, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah. So in your pieces, one of the things that you shared with me is that you were really interested in understanding how people can invest in themselves a little bit more. So share
Mhm.
with us maybe what that journey has looked like for you, and kind of where it's going.
Oh, yeah, of course. So, one of the things that I realized quickly is when we're talking about how hospitality and real estate are related, it's yes, it's the people, it's a conversation. So, what I learned is that perhaps instead of focusing my skills more in hospitality, learning more about Marriott, I would double down on my own soft skill, which is communication. So, I took communication courses, I took speech courses, I invested in myself, into the ability I currently had, so that way I could become more successful with that particular skill rather than trying to become an expert at all things. Find your strength and then double down on it. So for me, that's paid off in dividends. I would love to try and give that advice to most everyone. Obviously, investing in yourself is probably one of the best things you can do. That's not new. But finding a strength and just leaning into it, I think, is always helpful.
Yeah, because most people, and when you sit down to do a review, they'll say, okay, these are the things you're really good at. These are the things that are weaknesses or opportunities for you. Which one of these would you like to work on? And I'm always kind of the same idea of like, what are the strengths that you would like to work on and bring to the table and really develop, and then maybe help somebody else on the team, rather than always going towards those opportunities and weaknesses. Like, we need to celebrate some things also.
Exactly. Right. And so I realized, I hired a virtual admin to do a lot of my like data upload work because that was something that I wasn't doing very well at. And that was one of the things that I learned, hey, that allows me to focus on my strength and mitigate, the weaknesses by bringing in someone else onto the team.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you've been really good when it comes to delegation as well. So I always kind of explain this as our Thanksgiving plate, right? So if we fill our entire plate with the mashed potatoes and the turkey and the vegetables and the noodles and the gravy, by the time we get to that pumpkin cheesecake, we've got no room for pumpkin cheesecake. So I'm of the idea of like, if my plate is so full as a leader that later on I don't get the cheesecake, that's not going to go well for me, right? So I try to take some things off of that plate and trust other people on my team with that so that I have room for the cheesecake later.
That's a cute and very timely analogy. I'm here for it. Thanksgiving's around the corner.
Yeah.
But
So how have
really
you been
though,
able to delegate a little bit like that?
definitely, yeah. So bringing on and recognizing skills in other people has been something I've had to kind of accept. I There's a bit of a perfectionist mentality there. I want everything to be done, to the nines, perfectly every time. But it's been a opportunity for growth for me, to be able to trust and be able to identify and look outside myself for the skills of those around me and how I can better utilize them. Not to sound manipulative that way, but how those skills could be used to further the mission, whatever that is. If it's at work, if it's personal, I do this in my own life, just privately as well. There are certain people that I tap for certain things because they have that skill set, and work is no different. So if there's something that I struggle with, I used to double down and try and make sure that I got really good at it because it was up to me. But when I realized that there were people who genuinely enjoyed doing the tasks I hated, and they hated doing the tasks I enjoyed, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, wait a second. I think we can make something happen here. Like, and it takes away a lot of that guilt that I think sometimes delegation is infamous for.
Yeah, for sure does. So it sounds like you have a lot of leadership qualities and pieces in your life. So can you maybe share with us, what has leadership meant to you, and how did you come to that?
For sure. So, leadership to me is a lot like having a goalie on a soccer team. And I use that because I was a goalie for a long time. And when you are the goalie, you are the ultimate and final line of defense. You are, as leadership, the last call. You're the last escalation. You are the final, frontier, if you will. So you do have that responsibility, and that never goes away. So you carry that with you as you watch the field and as you watch the players who aren't any, lesser than you are, just because they're not the last line of defense. Maybe they're the second or the third, but all of their pieces are what constitute the entire whole and make the team successful. So as a leader, it's your job to stay on the field, to monitor what's happening, knowing you carry more responsibility, but not putting yourself above anyone else on the team.
I love that analogy of being the goalie. And the other thing that I like about it is that as soon as you said that, all I did was kind of picture the fact that the goalie can see the game play out. They've got this giant vision in front of them, and they are kind of the end, the last defense. But being able to see everything happen, but not having to be in the mix of everything happening.
That's
That's
true. Yep. There's a goalie box for a reason, right? There's literally a boundary.
Yes, and too often leaders are like, "Well, let me just go over here and take care of that for you because you're not doing it the way I would do it," right?
Yeah, but see, if you run away and leave the goal, not protected, yep, you don't
Oh
have that
gosh,
additional bandwidth.
picturing all that in my head is like, yes. My so as I was growing up and going through the restaurant business, one of my leaders said to me one time, if you continue, because I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do it for them, I'm going to do it with them, I'm going to teach along the way, right? And he was like, Trienne, if you're always doing everything for them, you're going to end up doing all over yourself, and they will not learn how to do it themselves. And I was like, Absolutely. And that has happened to me a couple times where I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how to, rotate potatoes or whatever it is? What do you mean you don't know how to do that? And they're like, well, you've always just made sure we have enough. So then I had to stand back and go, okay, I gotta let you get real close every once in a while so that you can save yourself. Yes. Tell us a little bit about how you went from being in that Marriott company. Obviously you loved that job if you were there for 6 years into where you're at right now. Like, what did that transition look for you? Because I think a lot of people are kind of afraid of taking that change or that jump.
I'm not gonna lie, it was very scary. Leaving comfort zones is always something that is scary, right? Regardless of if it's personal or work. I came to a realization of something that I think is worth sharing if you're not maybe in the hiring world. But the last job I had, I was the director of front office. The hotel was recovering post COVID, trying to bring back a lot of the services which had closed. So there were a lot of issues with reinstating services that were active prior to COVID, and then after COVID, when everything shut down and all the layoffs happened and things like that. So hospitality was really deeply shook, and it was difficult to try and recover from that. One of the issues, though, that I was running into was staffing because the pre-COVID wages were not holding up to the post-COVID inflation. And I was trying to fight my case, and I was trying to get to everybody up in the top wings. What can I do to try and just get a few more dollars? We had an employee. She was there before I got hired. She was celebrating her 20 years, and they gave her a $20 like Starbucks gift card. I asked for a $3 raise, and they said that's out of the budget. She'd been working there for 20 years. And after that, I was like, all right, I think I might be done because I was just feeling so burned out. There was, you can only hit your head against the wall so many times, right? So I turned and decided, you know what, what's a shoulder industry to hospitality? Real estate. So I moved around a lot. I'm familiar with that world. And so I turned in and started just getting my real estate license while I was at my job. So I would do my 40 hours or 50 hours, and then I would go home and I would study. And I passed the exam and I got my license. And then I decided that, you know what? I'm starting a new industry. I'm just going to have to start over. I started looking for leasing agent jobs so that way I could learn how property management worked. And I got lucky to be picked up by Brick and Vine, which is the company I currently work for, and they were interested in growing, and I had fantastic experience when it came to developing things out of nowhere since I'd had the opportunity to open hotels, which is a very different experience if you've never done that, building something from nothing. So I joined their forces. I was mentally prepared to take less money because I knew that would be difficult going from a director level to entry level, but it was worth it to make the jump. I had arranged my finances in advance. And then that position actually ended up turning into a director role because they realized that I was excellent at creating systems and making things function the way they should. And so now I've been developed into a role that makes more money for me than hospitality would have if I had stayed in the same career path, but was at this exact same timeline.
Yeah, that's amazing. Sometimes we do have to take that little bit of a financial step back in order to get in on that ground level, get our foot in the door. I had to do the same thing when I was recruited by a clothing retail company, which was way out of restaurant business for me. But I was like, I am looking for something that's going to be a completely different, that's got growth opportunities, whatever. And same thing, you have to kind of build your way up and kind of take the chance to make that job what you want it to be while you're serving this new company that you're a part of. And obviously it paid off really well for you as well, which I love.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you make your own story. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, we're talking about Thanksgiving plate and things like that. Like, you
Mhm.
have to make those decisions consciously so that way you can be successful afterwards.
Yeah, people get so stuck in the box of what their job description is, and then they feel stuck. And what happens when we feel stuck? We start to kind of like back off. We lose a little bit of confidence in our own skill set. But if we really look at that job description and go, okay, but what else? What else, like you said, shoulders it or complements it? What else can I do to, help with the mission of the company and grow myself? And then it's a win-win for everybody that's involved.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I noticed that as the hospitality person, I wasn't just a Marriott person. I was a salesman. I can sell you a third floor room that stares at a wall in Hollywood when you want to see the Hollywood Boulevard sign. I did that regularly. And I didn't realize that that was sales. I thought that was accommodating a guest and rolling out the red carpet. So once I started to realize these individual actions and things that I was doing and practicing on a regular basis could be implemented in another industry that pays better. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I was like, all right, it's time to go.
Time to
You know,
go. Yes.
yeah, we're not doing the $13 an hour anymore, y'all. We're starting something a little bit higher. And I just realized there wasn't as much money in hospitality, and I needed to make my peace with that.
When it's so interesting, it really stemmed from a belief in yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah, a
Yep.
belief in your
Realizing
own.
I had a marketable skill.
I love it. So obviously people in our community are going to want to continue to strengthen, this conversation and hear more about what it is that you have going on. So what is the best place for us to share in the comments below on how to connect with you or see all the things you have going on?
Yeah, of course. So I'm getting better at posting on my Instagram, which is at Janell Callisaya. And it's something that I would love to see if people have more, corporate tips, if they would like any type of career advice or anything like that. Thankfully, making the jump between industries has helped me to learn a lot about other resources which are available for those in a similar situation. So go ahead and reach out if there's anything I can assist you with. Obviously, that's kind of what I'm here for.
I love that. Thank you so much for being on with us today and kind of sharing your journey. There's so many little nuggets that I wrote down, but also things that I think the community will be able to gain from you as well. And guys, I just want to give a shout out to Janell one more time because she really took some of those skills that she already had. And how can you make those even better and make your life even better while still serving in a way that makes you happy and being really self-led, which I love. So that is how you get to next level leadership. All right. I'm so impressed by you. Thank you so much for being on with us today. And until next time, guys, remember that you have the opportunity to change your life, and it just starts with leading yourself. I hope you guys have a great day.